Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Today we are going to be making a chocolate cake in celebration of the fact that my senses of taste and smell are returning. I'm so grateful. Back during winter break, I got COVID as well as the rest of my family, but I also lost the sense of or the ability to taste and smell things, which was just such a bummer. But every day I notice small changes and abilities to smell things, and I'm so very grateful. And just recently I've been able to detect chocolate faintly, but it is there. So we are going to be making a chocolate cake in celebration for the fact that I can begin to taste it and smell things like coffee. It's so wonderful. I've learned so much about myself and what it is to appreciate my ability to taste and smell things, and things like a cup of coffee and just smelling coffee. It's just such a wonderful gift. So we're going to be making a Depression era chocolate cake. The reason why I've chose to make this recipe, number one, is that I make one of my favorite chocolate cakes. I'll put a link to that recipe down below. It happens to be vegan, but it's my favorite chocolate cake recipe. I'm going to be making one that's very similar to that recipe. I think that recipe is 10 or 12 years old. You can see baby Emmy in that video. The reason why I'm making this recipe is this one is similar to that one in the fact that there are no eggs, no dairy in the cake itself. I'm also going to be making a frosting today that does contain some butter. You can certainly omit that if you want to keep this dairy free, but there are no eggs in this. And if you purchased eggs recently, you've probably noticed that the price of eggs has skyrocketed nationwide, and it is due to avian flu. So many millions of chickens have had to be culled because of avian flu. It is very contagious and can decimate an entire flock, and rather than perpetuate and spread the flu, a lot of chickens have had to be culled. And because you need a hen of a certain age to produce eggs, there is a lag, and so there is a shortage of eggs, and so the prices of eggs have increased. So this recipe, you can have chocolate cake without having any eggs, and it is fantastic. One more thing, if this cake has no eggs, what is the leavener? What makes this cake rise? Well, we have baking powder and baking soda, but we also have vinegar, which seemingly is a odd ingredient to use in a sweet cake. But from my experience, you don't taste the vinegar at all. The vinegar reacts with the baking powder and the baking soda, creating little CO2 bubbles, carbon dioxide bubbles, which makes this cake light and airy and fluffy, but you don't taste any of the vinegar whatsoever. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started making this wacky wartime cake. This chocolate cake goes by many names. Sometimes it's called a Depression era chocolate cake. It's also called war cake, wartime cake, or wacky cake because of the use of vinegar. Okay, now let's go ahead and get started. So we'll need a large bowl, and we need our ingredients. And because I always use a bowl that's too small, let's start with a large bowl this time, right? Can you see it? Great. Okay, first we are going to combine our dry ingredients, which is the flour and cocoa powder. I'm using a combination of natural cocoa powder and Dutch processed cocoa powder because the recipe did not specify which to use. And sometimes it's really important because Dutch process or European style cocoa powder tends to have a chocolate flavor, but it is alkalized. So as opposed to natural cocoa powder, which isn't alkalized, it has some acidity to it, which sometimes is important for the CO2 reaction to happen in a recipe. But since this didn't specify it, I just decided to split the difference and do half and half because I love really chocolatey flavors, but I don't want to mess up the recipe either. So here we go. Okay, sugar, lots. I know that's often considered a wet ingredient, but this is a recipe that we're just dumping everything in. And we need baking powder and baking soda, baking powder and baking soda, and a bit of salt. Okay, combine that all together. I probably should have sifted my cocoa powder because I am seeing lumps of it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that extra step. Let's work out all those cocoa powder lumps. See, they're going to reveal themselves. Look, look. And then we just mush them in. Yeah. Okay, I think this bowl actually will be big enough. Next, oil and coffee. I'm going to use my coffee to rinse out any leftover oil. And my measuring cup. And you can use water if you don't want to use coffee. See, this cake is kind of nutty. I'm gonna mix this up. Oh, it smells so good. I can smell the coffee and the chocolate. I still sound a little bit stuffy, and my sense of taste is definitely muted. So things are still returning. That was some apple cider vinegar. And look, immediately we get this lovely reaction. And that's the acid and the base mixing together to create bubbles. That's it. That's it. Okay. Now I've got an 8-inch by 8-inch pan that I've lined with parchment paper, and I'm gonna just dump this in. And I've got my, oh, let me just do this first before I start talking. One thing at a time. Distribute that into the corners because the middle always tends to poof up more than the rest. So add a little more batter to the corners. Okay, so now we're going to pop this into a preheated 325-degree oven and bake 45 to 50 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. Then we will allow this to cool completely before we add the frosting. And then we're going to celebrate and taste our chocolate cake. See you in a little bit. Alrighty, my lovelies, I am back to make the frosting that's going to go on top of my cooled cake. And it looks pretty straightforward. So we're going to add some butter. This has been sitting at room temperature. Pinch of salt and some cocoa powder. This is an interesting ingredient. Hot water. Vanilla. Oh, I forgot to mention to add vanilla to your cake batter as well. 1.5 teaspoons. Here we're adding 1 teaspoon. I'm gonna cream this with a mixer first. Whoa. Once again, this mixer is just, it's a bit much. That's on level 1. That looks beautiful. Now we're going to sweeten things up with powdered sugar. I'm going to add this kind of gradually. I can see little bits of powdered sugar in there, and I don't like it. The instructions said nothing about sifting the powdered sugar in, but maybe with more vigorous mixing, those little bits will blend in. Yeah. So for my next cup of sugar, I am going to sift it in. So we're going to do this so as to save ourselves some work. Just dump it all in. Powdered sugar gets very lumpy because it's so fine, so it absorbs water very easily, moisture, and we get lots of clumps. So yeah, okay. Let's continue to mix and clean up while we're at it. Oh, this is looking beautiful. Scrape down the sides here where my beaters can't reach. And this is looking great. I don't see any lumps. Great. Yeah, definitely recommend using an electric mixer if you have one. Alrighty, so there we have our beautiful frosting. Look at that. That came together so quickly. Go. So now we have our cake. Da-da-da-da! This is our fully cooked and cooled cake. There it is, lovely dark color. Now, I do have to say, the recipe said to bake this 45 to 50 minutes, but this is a relatively small cake. So I checked it at 30 minutes and it was completely done. So err on the side of cooking this less, check it early. If it looks cooked, go ahead and stick a toothpick in it. And if it comes out clean, the cake is completely cooked. So glad I did that, otherwise we would have had a dry cake. This is why parchment paper is so wonderful. You just can do that. Still have to clean your pans a little bit, but you don't have to worry that the cake won't come out. So pull this out on the sides. Look at that, that looks great. So what we can do is fold the parchment back like this underneath and kind of hide it. And then frost it. Just place it on our plate. Plate's a little bit small. I do have a bigger plate somewhere. I just don't really know where. I'm going to use an offset spatula. This, my favorite tool for frosting. And dollop this on. Of course, this particular frosting now makes this cake dairied. This is no longer vegan, but if you want to make this vegan, then simply substitute a plant-based butter. Oh, I can smell the chocolate. Yes. This is my other favorite thing to do when it comes to frosting chocolate cakes is this schmoogie part, these like smothering, schmeary, oh my goodness. This stuff, yeah. And then I like to do little fun swoops to get that kind of old-fashioned-y cake look. So it looks unintentional, you know? Even though we're intending to make it look swoopy. Best to do less than more. Oh, let's taste this. Definitely sweet. I can just barely taste the butter, but I can taste the chocolate. Just a little bit. Sense of taste is coming back, yes. Look at that. All right, let me show you a close-up of this. Alrighty, let's cut us a slice. Look at this beautiful cake. No eggs in this cake, and in the cake itself there's no dairy in it. Of course there is in the frosting, but you make the decision whether you want to add frosting or not. I think a dusting of powdered sugar would be lovely as well, or you can substitute a plant-based butter for the butter. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Let's eat this thing. I'm gonna go ahead and slice me a slice. Slicing beautifully. Yeah. Look at that. That looks pretty delicious. So there we have it. Beautiful slice of chocolate cake. Let's give it a bite. Oof. Alrighty, Depression era chocolate cake. Itadakimasu. Is that frosting ever sweet? Ooh, very sweet. And it's delicious, full of chocolatey flavor without being fudgy or too rich or heavy. Definitely bake this for less time than it says in the recipe. This is almost dry. Now, the icing, I have to say, is very, very sweet. It does make it feel celebratory. If you want to skip on the making of the icing and all of that sugar, You can do what I often do when I make a quick wacky cake like this. I add a couple handfuls of chocolate chips to the batter, bake it off, and then it adds a little extra bit of sweet chocolatiness to the cake, and then it doesn't need any frosting whatsoever. I can just barely taste the chocolate. I wish I could taste it more. But I do not taste any vinegar whatsoever. I think that's a key thing for me to stress. Even when I had no smell whatsoever, I could taste salty, sweet, sour, bitter, umami. So no sourness, no smell of vinegar whatsoever, this cake. Just chocolatey sweetness. Alrighty, my lovelies, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media. Check out my website. I will include adapted version of this recipe. Like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye!